Expose Hearts+Eating Melons+Sweet Pets+Daily. As an overtime dog, Shen Sui died suddenly and accidentally fell into a dynasty named Daqing at an unknown time and space on the eve of Shen Sui, who had been guarding the inner courtyard of the Shen family for 15 years and had exposed his inner voice since birth. Stepping out of the gate of the Shen family, he obtained a salted fish and melon eating system. Shen Suigang just finished eating Shen's grandfather's melons. My grandmother played a good chess game, which turned out to be a mischievous bear child who caused trouble everywhere into a knowledgeable court official, missing a grandmother upon learning that their father had received punishment, punished the moon and silver for 3 months. Oh! The little money to make my wife happy is gone, copying the Classic of Filial Piety. Oh, my time with my wife is also running out, and I still say you are unfilial. Still going to the ancestral temple to copy the filial piety scriptures. Oh no! I can't even see my wife's face, it's so miserable. Seeing the melon of the father and son of Rong'an Marquis mansion. Let me see who this is, it looks so ugly and scary. This is Marquis Rong'an, TSK. This family really eats shrimp from melon seeds. They have all kinds of kernels. Chen Qiming is hanging out with his servant somewhere in the imperial garden eating Uncle Huang's melon, not to mention being selfless and constantly managing affairs in the court. This harem is surprisingly clean. TSK. How can I eat this melon? The Shen family, I can't keep it at all. She even eats royal melons. Chapter 1. Shen Sui's first time going out. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Miss, we should go out now, said the maid in a green dress as she stepped in from the door. Okay, Shen Sui responded while admiring himself in the bronze mirror. Her face is as white as jade, her eyebrows and eyes are curved, and her face is as bright as morning glory. The most attractive thing is the eyes. She had a pair of smiling eyes that looked like a clear pond, with the corners of her lips not raised. With the rotation of her round eyes, her smile rippled from the center of the pond, sparkling with light. Looking at those eyes can make people feel the pleasure emanating from the bottom of their hearts. Although she is not a stunning beauty at first glance, she excels in her gentle and calm temperament, belonging to the durable type of little beauty. Well, on the surface it seems like this. She's a beautiful little beauty. After finishing the maid's long manipulation for an hour, Shen Sui gave an affirmation. The servants of the Shen mansion have become accustomed to hearing the young lady's voice. After all, they have been listening to her for 15 years. 15 years ago, Shen Sui discovered that he had traveled through time and was still experiencing the process of being born, and his heart was shattered. But I am also grateful that I finally don't have to live a life where I either work overtime or work overtime every day. As the secretary of a boss who works overtime, she naturally becomes an overtime dog. That's right, she died suddenly from working overtime. After accepting the reality, she lived a life of 15 years of salt fish. Why hasn't she been out of the house for 15 years? When she was 5 years old, she asked her grandfather why she couldn't go out. Her grandfather was so careless. Oh, no, that's what I told her. It is said that an old monk with a fairy-like demeanor said that if she hits the belt and goes out, there will be a small calamity in 3 days and a big calamity in 5 days. If she can safely pass through 15 years, she will have a long and prosperous life. She has a little bit of anticipation for the outside world, but not much. So whatever his grandfather says, she can do it. She is also the only girl in the family for 10 generations. Judging from the level of love and care her family has for her, she will never harm her. She is not a restless person, and all her life's hard work has been spent on the modern dog owner. After Shen Sui got into the carriage, he slightly tilted aside a corner of the curtain and curiously looked at the scenery outside the window. She is currently in a dynasty called Daqing, and as a qualified Chinese, she naturally knows that she has fallen into an unknown dynasty of unknown space and time. This dynasty has lasted for more than 200 years and can still be considered as a continuation of the saying, building a long-term stability, growing the cause of governance. This can all be attributed to the founding emperor's emphasis on people's livelihoods, the reform of the imperial examination system, and the opening up of the path for women to become officials, among a series of important governance policies. The current Daqing dynasty is comparable to the prosperous era of the Tang dynasty, with a peaceful country and people, peace in the world, and peace in all things. What shocked Shen Sui the most was the idea of women serving as officials, which was equivalent to breaking the stubborn and corrupt idea that women were inferior to men. It can be imagined how much pressure the founding emperor faced to reform the imperial examination system at that time. Sometimes Shen Sui really suspects that he has traveled across time. After all, many policies are really well, avant-garde, but why hasn't there really been a good improvement in food and clothing, even after 200 years of abundant food and clothing? Can't these ancient people awaken their culinary skills? Hey, Shen Sui expressed that he couldn't understand. Perhaps it was God's compensation for her hard work in her previous life, as she was born into a wealthy family. There are Grand Tutor's grandfather, Prime Minister's father, and Princess's mother above, and Uncle Li's attendant below. Uncle Heir is an imperial merchant. Both the eldest and second aunties are from noble families and clans. Over the past 15 years, Shen Sui has been watching his family's officials rise higher and higher, and his heart trembles with fear. After all, no emperor likes such a person. Well, it seems like the family is about to usurp the throne and jump in front of him at any time. Their family's continued existence to this day indicates the current magnanimity. Of course, she is not the only one at home who thinks so. My grandfather has already handed in his resignation letter and will be able to retire at home by the end of the year. His elderly family is very happy. Father may not be able to step down for a while, but uncle has really been working hard in recent years not to rise. Didn't he even dare to enter the court without seeing Uncle Heir? The four brothers of the Shen family really have no intention of going to the court. Uncle's eldest brother Shen Zhe and second brother Shen Shan. The twins of Heir Bo's family are Shen Gu, the third brother, and Shen Ji, the fourth brother. These brothers are really daughter-in-law and don't know how to find them. The three older brothers behind can still say, "Don't worry," when they are 16 years old, but the older brother is already 18. Look up, dare not, look down, you may not be able to afford to be this mistress. Auntie now has a loving attitude, finding her own wife and following fate. Today, during the Mid-Autumn Festival, a banquet was held in the palace. Officials of the fourth or higher rank in the court could bring their families to the palace to participate in the banquet. As the second uncle of the imperial merchant, he was also included in the banquet list. Therefore, his family was mostly mobilized in battle. Remembering the expression on her face as the whole family watched her before leaving, it made her feel like she was about to die heroically. The first time I went out, Shen Sui, who was originally not nervous, was made a little uneasy by them putting down the curtain. Shen Sui pursed his lips. It seems that the official residences are located not far from the imperial city to the east of the capital, and it is impossible to pass through the street market, so the lively scene of the market cannot be seen. I saw that many frames were also heading towards the imperial city, so I should have attended the palace banquet like them. At least someone else has a golden finger or something while traveling. What about her? Everything. Last night when I was feeling drowsy, I seemed to dream about some kind of system. And I kept talking about a bunch of things, called the salted fish. The melon eating system. Sigh, maybe I have thoughts day and dreams night. What? A group of people listening to Shen Suigang expressed that they didn't understand. Looking at the sudden light screen appearing in his mind, Shen Sui looked bewildered and didn't even dream. But what did that person say yesterday? She didn't listen. Tong. Are you still there, Tong Zi? Shen Sui, who didn't hear a response, wanted to cry without tears. Is this why he arrived late? Late 15 years. Your son. Salted fish eating melon system, dare you tell me, is salted fish eating melon? Let me see how to use it. The screen is very clean, with two pieces of content. On the left is a box, similar to the real name authentication facial recognition in various software. On the right is a search button. Shen Sui was studying the system over there, and the elders of the Shen family all sighed helplessly. Chapter 2. Grandfather, Isn't It Good to Live? You are listening at novelfull.audio. The four men on the carriage of Shen's grandfather looked at each other, including Shen Sui's grandfather Shen Wenru, uncle Shen Huaijuan, second uncle Shen Huaixue, and his own father Shen Huaixin. The matter of this inner voice has not been resolved yet, why there are so many systems. Shen Huaixin pinched his brows. Today, let's first take a look at the emperor's attitude towards this matter. Shen Wenru shook his head. Such an incredible thing is easily seen as a monster. Today, Sui Bao, that little talker, please don't reveal anything shocking about her world. Congratulations. Shen Huaixue was heartbroken. For 15 years, I have known about this matter, except for the Shen family and the few remaining servants at home, which was the day Shen Sui was born as the emperor's uncle. While Shen Sui was constantly picking on modern things, everyone in the Shen family also knew half of it knowing that her previous life, let's just say it's from the previous life. It should be said that I lived in a magical world, but I don't know why I reincarnated with memories occasionally. I can still hear her talk about some modern technology, such as airplanes and phones, which sounds very magical. They are really greedy, not to mention the one on the throne. But it's hard to ask, as long as it's related to their inner voice, there's a mysterious force that keeps them from speaking up. Fortunately, Shen Sui didn't know. Even if she knew, she wouldn't be able to build airplanes. Is her phone okay? Fortunately, the emperor had seen such a side when he was born. I know that the little niece of the Shen family's treasure even found an excuse from an old monk to tell her fortune and not let her go out. Her system, I hope it's not something extraordinary. She's such a restless chatterbox, Shen Huaijuan said with disdain, her eyes overflowing with indulgence. There is always an ominous feeling. Shen Huaixue's words had just finished, and a chill hit the four of them from their backs together. Next second, sure enough, Shen Sui's voice came through. It looks so simple, like putting a person's avatar on top can eat that person's melon. Is the portrait in my impression okay? The head of the family, bear the brunt, grandfather's melons. Shen Sui's solemn face slowly appeared in his mind. Although Shen Wenru didn't understand, he vaguely felt that it wasn't a good thing and stroked his forehead. Shen Sui suddenly felt something was missing and began to pull into her sleeve, as his grandfather used to be strict with us young people and speak frankly. What? Why didn't you say it? The Shen family only started talking about this gossip when they heard it, scratching their hearts and liver, feeling uncomfortable. Shen Sui pulled a handful of pine nuts out of his sleeve. Gossip should be accompanied by some snacks. I didn't forget to share some with two maids, Ji Qiu and Meng Dong. The two maids silently took the pine nuts. The reward given by the young lady was definitely not something they wanted to be happy gossiping about. Yoho. When he was 3 years old, he would pull when the same sex hugged him, and praise when the opposite sex hugged him. At the age of 5, he recruited cats and teased dogs. At the age of 7, he disguised himself as a ghost to scare people, and at the age of 10, he angrily ran away from all the teachers who taught him. In the end, my great-grandfather had no choice but to personally teach him. Oh. It was another wave of chicken and dog jumping. My great-grandfather woke up to look for shoes. He hid them. The gift he gave to his wife was missing. He sold it. There's an extra Huang Ba in my great-grandfather's collection of antique paintings. Guess what? Is it him or did he paint it? If you don't want it, then don't do it. It's annoying. Grandfather, isn't it good to live? Thank you to my ancestors of the Shen family for burning the high incense, which allowed me to see you, who are now steadfast and steadfast. Puai. Shen Sui looked up at Meng Dong in confusion. This girl, miss, I just told Meng Dong a joke. Ji Qiu next to me quickly helped to make up for it. Right, miss, it's really funny. Meng Dong nodded. Oh. Shen Sui thought he was too engrossed in eating melons and accidentally spoke his mind. He pulled out his sleeve again and took out another handful of pine nuts. After thinking about it for a while, I still split it up and threw it to two maids. It's not that she's reluctant, she didn't bring much either. On Shen Wenru's side, there was a different scene. with all 4 men from the Shen family looking solemn. What kind of system is this? How did it appear at this time? Shen Suigang rubbed his temples with a headache. This is equivalent to anyone standing in front of Sui Sui, knowing his life. If Sui Sui really discovers any secrets, it's not impossible to be assassinated. Shen Suigang also felt a headache. This little troublemaker was actually from his family. Others can still block it, this royal. It all depends on that person's attitude. Shen Wenru sighed helplessly. He can also be considered to have watched this person grow up. Currently, there is no problem with his temperament, and he can be called a wise ruler. Father, did you really draw a queen in my grandfather's collection of paintings? Shen Huaishua looked at Shen Wenru with a smile on his face. Are you too idle? Shen Wenru sipped his tea. That, father, my wife is looking for me. Despite Shen Wenru's warning gaze, Shen Huaishua jumped off the car without waiting for the frame to stop watching the backs of their own younger brothers fleeing. Shen Huijuan and Shen Huixin were restless. Father, my wife must be looking for me too. Shen Huixin jumped off the carriage without waiting for Shen Wenru's response. What? Your wife is also looking for you. Shen Wenru stared at Shen Huijuan intently. Shen Huijuan looked silently at his father's hand tightly gripping his sleeve, realizing for the first time that his father could do this rogue. Are you not planning to pretend after exposure? Father, you see those 2 are so old and don't know how serious they are. Shouldn't they be punished? The sleeves loosened a bit. Punish the moon and silver for 3 months. Uncle Shen tugged at his sleeve, almost missing it, copying 100 filial piety classics, continuously striving to strive again. Next month on the double 9th festival, let them go to the ancestral temple in advance to copy the filial piety scriptures, which can be considered as fulfilling filial piety to our ancestors. Shen Huijuan stroked his wrinkled sleeve. Well, go tell your brothers the good news. Shen Wenru waved his hand. Yes, father. Shen Huijuan stood up and got off the carriage. By the way, hand over your copied filial piety scriptures to me. Shen Wenru paused as he watched his eldest son lift the curtain and snorted. After getting off the carriage, Shen Huijuan looked at his father's carriage and touched his nose. Although he wanted to copy the filial piety scriptures, at least he didn't have to go to the ancestral temple and still managed to preserve the moon silver. Grandfather's method of chasing his wife is also fast, accurate, and ruthless. Upon hearing the profound voice of his heart again, Shen Wenru's eyes twitched slightly. Hold it back, you can't take action. Our old Shen family has only produced such a girl for 10 generations. Shen Wenru took a deep breath. My grandfather and grandmother met on the Lantern Festival of the year. At that time, my grandfather was hit by a woman walking hastily and his arm was numb. He was about to curse when he looked up. It doesn't matter if you don't look at it. Look at it. Oh, isn't this our long-lost wife? Shen Wenru listened to Shen Sui's use of words to stroke his forehead, and suddenly felt that he had been teaching Bai for over a decade, staring at the girl without saying a word. If it weren't for her ears turning red and not being scolded for being a disciple, the girl watched her grandfather staring at her without saying a word, blushing and hurriedly running away. Wait for my grandfather to react and see, there's no one left. What's the deal with this duck that I got? How can my daughter law fly? Shen Sui reached into his sleeve again. Where are my pine nuts? Where is my big bag of pine nuts? What? What's going on? What's going on? My wife hasn't caught up yet. The gossip of this head of the household is just beautiful. Chapter 3. Grandfather's Road to Chasing Wife. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shen Sui dug into his sleeve. Dig again. I ate so hard that I ran out of the small snacks I used to pass the time at the palace banquet. Shen Sui stared blankly at the empty oil paper packaging in his hand, looking at Meng Dong's remaining pine nuts in the blink of an eye. There have been too many divisions. Upon hearing this, Meng Dong looked at the young lady looking at the pine nuts in her hand. Wrong, she's just too obsessed with gossip and eats slowly. Miss, why not give it to you? Meng Dong slowly handed out the melon seeds in his hand. You eat. Shen Sui withdrew his gaze. That's not enough. The palace banquet is so big and the duration is so long. What does this mean? It means there are many melons. Someone, come on. Who? Who will bring snacks to this little ancestor? Upon hearing this, the Shen family's hearts were filled with mournful cries. Only Shen Wenru calmly held a book and couldn't hide the smile in his eyes. Ahem. Someone, please send some snacks to Sui Sui to pass the time. Shen Huaijuan and his wife smiled at each other. Madam, let's give Suibao that, the biggest bag. Shen Huaishue picked out his wife's snack. Shen Airs and Zhou Rongyue also likes to eat snacks in her daily life. When she heard that her niece was short of snacks, she didn't hesitate to contribute her treasure. She definitely doesn't want to listen to her father-in-law's gossip. Someone, send the roasted chestnuts, pine nuts, and osmanthus cake to the young lady, as well as the roasted chicken. The food at the palace banquet is all cold, and you can cushion your stomach on the carriage. After all, filial piety cannot be copied in vain. Shen's mother, Qin Yonglin, looked at her husband with a smile on her face. You can't starve our daughter. Shen Huaixin awkwardly coughed as he met his wife's gaze. Mississippi grandpa, second grandpa, and third grandpa have sent you some snacks to pass the time. Shen Suiang's worries and snacks are gone. The excited voice of the servant could be heard from outside the frame. Yo! Isn't that unfortunate? They all brought snacks over. Meng Dong, go get it. Meng Dong had already stood up and left before he could finish speaking. Leave a puzzled Shen Sui and a helpless Ji Qiu watching her back. That figure is somewhat visible no matter how it looks. Unable to wait, Ji Qiu silently reminded herself in her heart that when she returned to the Shen mansion, she must talk about Meng Dong. Well, is the master's gossip something that we maids can listen to? You can secretly listen. Eat well, where did you see just now? Shen Sui took a bite of the roasted chicken that her father had given her. Oh, how could my grandfather let my little daughter-in-law run away? So he immediately asked someone to inquire whose family that girl belonged to. This inquiry is amazing. This girl's family is just right in front of her, and the man is also a well-known family to her grandfather, with excellent talent, character, and knowledge. Grandfather doesn't look good, he needs to come up with a solution. Guess what? It really made my grandfather think of a way. Originally, my grandfather knew that the young master had a fiancée before, but somehow an accident happened and he was gone. But this young master was very loyal and devoted, and he couldn't forget his childhood sweetheart's fiancée. He ignored the arranged love affair at home, resulting in never marrying him. This time, it was the mother at home who forced her to die, and I heard that the woman was the brave and handsome female general who had seen her before. That's why I decided to go and see her. That's why we had this meeting. My grandfather thought that if he could find a woman who looked similar to his fiancée, this would be half done. Shen Sui picked up the tea from the table and took a sip of it. Looking up, I saw two pairs of sparkling eyes staring at her, the roasted chicken in hand, looking at the various snacks piled up on the table. Take a look at the big roasted chicken in your hand. Again, after some thought, I decided to tear it off and give it to two maids. Well, after all, the snacks we brought were enough to eat. Grandfather immediately asked people to find the portraits of the fiancé and the cousin. The two portraits were compared. Yo ho! They were not exactly the same, but it was like 7 or 8 points. Grandfather was immediately happy. Then, with the help of his grandfather, the young master ran into his cousin. At first sight of a woman who looked so similar to his fiancée, he was dazed for a moment. After waking up, he had a desire to marry her back and become his wife. Upon returning home, he immediately confessed to his family. When the family heard that their son wanted to get married, there was no time to wait. After all the procedures of looking at each other, getting engaged, and getting married, it was a quick move. Grandfather breathed a sigh of relief while also feeling a hint of envy, and now decided to accelerate his pace of marrying a wife. So my grandfather prepared for the proposal at home, while also encountering various gifts and causing trouble for the young master who was interested in my grandmother. He was quite busy. In half a year, he finally won my grandmother. TSK. Grandfather even boasted everywhere that he would catch up with his wife in 6 months. Shen Wenru paused with his hand holding the book. What? What's the slightest hint of disgust in this little kid's tone? After clearing his hands, Shen Sui leaned lazily against the carriage with slightly narrowed eyes. Well, I've eaten a bit too much. Wait a moment, It turns out like this. No wonder. What? No wonder what? This is a sudden surprise. Originally, my grandmother had already met my grandfather. Not only did the younger generation of the Shen family look surprised, but even Shen Wenru looked up from the book in surprise. As early as the Lantern Festival, at a flower viewing banquet, my grandmother met Grandpa Shen, who was following my great-grandmother. The young man walked lightly and had a tall and upright posture, looking like a graceful young master. I have long heard of the great achievements of this playboy outside. My grandmother originally didn't like those young masters speaking with a naive demeanor, and she became even more interested in my grandfather. So there was a chance encounter during the Lantern Festival, revealing the news of that cousin to my grandfather, and so on. Grandmother is good at playing extreme pulling, and in her interactions with her grandfather, she tries to resist and welcome her, indulging in the pursuit of capture. Shen Sui silently gave his grandmother a thumbs up in his heart. If it weren't for my grandmother not wanting to play anymore, my grandfather wouldn't have been able to catch up for 3 years. My grandmother played a good chess game, which turned out to be a mischievous bear child who caused trouble everywhere into a knowledgeable court official. Missing a grandmother, I heard that her grandmother is still a resourceful, brave and skilled heroine. Unfortunately, Shen Sui did not have the opportunity to meet this grandmother. Shen Sui passed away before he was born. Shen Wenru remembered his first wife, and a strong tenderness appeared in his eyes as he lowered his head to read. Then he chuckled lightly. A murmur followed. No wonder every time she talks about chasing her, she looks like, I'll just watch you make it up. Chapter 4. Entering the Palace. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. De Co Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text. Chapter 5. The little knife slacks its butt, opening its eyes. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. There is a portrait of the young Prince of Rong'an Marquis in Lin Qianqian's room. Let's try to search for him. The people in the main hall looked at each other, confirming that they were not hallucinating, and then searched everywhere for the source of the sound. Not to mention, this young prince's appearance may not be stunning to the world, but with a humble and gentle young master's jade-like appearance, there are still many young girls who like him. Unfortunately, the people of Rong'an Marquis' mansion are really hypocritical and dirty, bold, who's talking nonsense. Suddenly, there was a burst of anger in the quiet hall, and it was Marquis Rong'an who had just sat down. Shen Sui trembled with fear at the sudden sound. Cheng Yonglin quickly comforted and patted her back, fearing her, while glaring in the direction of Rong'an Marquis in dissatisfaction. Has this person's brain been shaken? Well, just go out and shake it, it really scared me. The people around me chuckled inwardly as they listened. Marquis Rong'an was so angry that his face turned red. Let me see who this is, he looks so ugly and terrifying. Shen Sui looked at Rong'an Marquis standing there trembling with his body. This is Marquis Rong'an, TSK. This family really eats shrimp from melon seeds. They have all kinds of kernels. The people around are quietly waiting for the following text. Zhou Rongyue even picked up some melon seeds and handed them to Shen Sui. Shen Sui unconsciously took it and started eating melon seeds. My son is raising a male pet outside, and in order to cover up his broken sleeves, he uses his good looks to flirt with little beauties everywhere. Lin Qianqian and Xia Tsongyan looked at each other with an incredulous expression on their faces, without any intention of arguing, instantly feeling nauseous like eating shit. Laozi raised an outer chamber outside and gave birth to a son of the same age as Chen Qiming. He also wanted to straighten the outer chamber. The people in the main hall looked at Lady Rong'an one after another. Madame Rong'an was renowned for her virtuous and dignified demeanor in the capital, and she also had a good appearance. When she was young, she was also a member of the broken family threshold, but Lady Rong'an seemed to have known it before and was fundamentally affected, knowing that his son has a broken sleeve, but still asking him to marry a woman from a noble family to cover up the fact that he has a broken sleeve. he can leave his son outside after giving birth no matter what. Chen Qiming's preference was not for Xia Zongyan and Lin Qianqian at all, but for the strength of their family, which made Marquis Rong'an hesitant among them. In order to straighten the outer room, Marquis Rong'an had his wife kidnapped by someone, intending to throw her into a dilapidated temple. He also had a group of beggars harass her, and even planned to trick Marquis' family into extorting a large amount of money from them. What kind of animal did it take out and slip away? Fortunately, Lady Ho's family had already thought that Marquis Rong'an's conduct was despicable, and had people secretly pay attention to the situation in Marquis Rong'an's mansion, which saved Lady Ho from being humiliated. Shen Sui gritted his teeth as he watched, wishing he could go up and kill that bastard. Cheng Yonglin looked coldly at Marquis Rong'an, not sure if the imperial brother was short of money recently. Can this beast copy it? The people in the palace also looked sarcastically at Marquis Rong'an. Madame Rong'an looked at Rong'an Marquis in shock. She has always known that Marquis Rong'an has an extramarital affair, and after so many years, she has no hope of being with Marquis Rong'an anymore. I didn't expect him to be so ruthless and even want to ruin himself. This old beast is growing up so ugly. Why is his son good? Looking, not only did Shen Sui have such doubts, but the people in the palace were also very curious. I didn't pay attention before, but when Shen Sui mentioned it like this, everyone had strange expressions. I don't know, hee. This old beast used to exchange the children born in the outer chamber with those of Lady Rong'an while she was giving birth and falling asleep. That child was not only beaten by the outer chamber for a long time, but even watched coldly when he found out. Madame Rong'an clenched her fists tightly. Tsk. I really want to know the expression on that old beast's face when he knows that his beloved son is not his own seed. This outsider really has a good plan. It turns out she has already been married, but her husband went missing unexpectedly. When searching for her husband, she was taken notice of by Marquis Rong'an. She used the power of Marquis Rong'an's mansion to find someone, and even lied that she was looking for her brother. After finding her, the two of them have been secretly communicating with each other, even to the point of pearl pregnancy. The two of them have brought in a lot of good things from Marquis Rong'an over the years. So far, tsk. It's really not inferior to the financial resources of the Marquis' mansion. This son doesn't have any doubts like me, idiot. If it weren't for the dowry of the Marquis of Rong'an for the past decade or so, who would have known about the Marquis of Rong'an now? This Marquis of Rong'an is really a crow in the water, with a black heart. The people in the palace nodded incessantly in agreement. It's really a small knife hitting my butt. I opened my eyes. How can I remind Madame Rong'an? You can't just go up and say that your husband is a beast, right? It's hard to find these three-legged toads. Men with two legs are everywhere. They kicked Rong'an Marquis under the condition of his wife, and there are millions of men waiting. Cheng Yonglin. She used all her life's patience to not publicly knock Shen Sui's head. What is a three-legged toad? It's hard to find. Two-legged men are everywhere. Shen Sui is currently worried about how to remind Madame Rong'an of her current situation. The people in the hall all expressed that there was no need to remind them. A loud slap echoed through the hall. Startled, Shen Sui lifted his head. Madame Rong'an was glaring angrily at Rong'an Marquis, and her hand that had just been put down turned red. Cool. Don't use your hands next time, it hurts. The slap mark on Rong'an Ho's face was so refreshing that it made Shen Sui feel better. The people in the main hall also secretly said hello. Just why did she suddenly turn her back? Does Lady Rong'an know that the old beast is plotting against her? Shen Sui silently nibbled on melon seeds, looking left at the old beast and right at Lady Rong'an. Marquis, Chen Daolin, let separate from each other. Mrs. Rong'an closed her eyes and adjusted her emotions. After speaking, she turned around and left. She wanted to find her son, and she wouldn't let go of Rong'an Marquis' mansion. A Marquis' mansion, which had already fallen from grace in its early years, had no choice but to have her as the daughter of the richest man. She will also throw money into this capital, and there will no longer be his Rong'an Marquis' mansion. After handling these, she still needs to check whose little girl's voice that is. She wants to repay her little benefactor. Marquis Rong'an is still shocked. His son was slapped. If it wasn't him, madam still wants to separate from him. He knows the situation of their Marquis mansion, otherwise he wouldn't have calculated against the two daughters of the Xia and Lin families. Done. Everything is over. It's all because of that slut. He calculated everything to help her right, but he didn't expect this slut to plan on him. Yes, he wants to make that lowly life worse than death. He wants to take back everything he gave to that lowly person. Thinking of Rong'an Marquis hastily leaving. Why have they all left? The old beast has left, and there are also young beasts. Chen Qiming is hanging out with his servant somewhere in the imperial garden. What? Shen Suigang wants to pee and escape to see the excitement. Your uncle will arrive soon. Chen Yonglin quietly grabbed her and gestured to look at Shen Wenru and others walking towards them. Raise your eyes and silently confront your mother's gaze. The people in the palace are also eager to move. The emperor, who had already arrived at the back of the hall, secretly went to take a look and quickly led the empress into the main hall. He is afraid that a group of people from Huang will run to the imperial garden later. The grandfathers of the Shen family have already returned to Shen Sui's side, expressing their helplessness towards this playful young man. The emperor has arrived. As the sound sounded, Chen Yonglin let go of Shen Sui's small hand. Fortunately, she arrived in time. Even if she were a little late, she wouldn't be able to hold on to this little ancestor. Shen Sui pursed his lips. What are you doing? She just wants to join in the fun. As the eunuch's sharp voice rang out, he knelt down in the hall, saying, I kowtow to the emperor and empress. The emperor and empress are safe. Shen Sui also knelt down with his family. Shen Sui let out a faint sigh. In the end, I still bowed my head to the feudal etiquette system. Let's all get up. Today's mid-autumn festival banquet, be more casual. The resounding and powerful voice rang out as everyone sat down. Various types of food were also served on the table. I'm not prepared to say anything to the emperor. The atmosphere at the banquet gradually became lively. Some important ministers began to raise their glasses to the emperor. TSK. At a large annual meeting, you can't escape the boastful subordinates anywhere. The toasting ministers gave a toast to the wine glasses in their hands. Which family's little ancestor is this? Is the cup they just raised a toast or not? The emperor's gaze also secretly glanced at the small figure of the Shen family huddled behind his imperial sister. Remembering the day she was born, she pounced on him, shouting in her heart about her beautiful brother. Sticking stickers when he found out that he was her uncle. The collapsed expression still left a deep impression on him to this day. Humph and laugh. Little one is still so interesting. He had just heard a rough idea about the Rong'an Marquis mansion. No wonder the Grand Tutor reported it to him as soon as he entered the palace to provide support for his granddaughter Sai. Tomorrow we have to deal with these old foxes in the court again. Chapter 6. Toads lying on their feet, not biting people, responding to people's diaphragm. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The word beautiful made the emperor frown slightly. After all these years, the words used by the little guy are still so indescribable. The ministers in the palace suddenly realized that it was a precious lump that the Shen family had been hiding for 15 years. No wonder it has been hidden for 15 years. The expressions of everyone present were inconsistent, which made the emperor secretly remember certain people. Well, the food at the palace banquet is not too difficult to eat, it's just cold. The Mid-Autumn Festival in Beijing has already started to feel a bit chilly, and the food is really difficult to keep warm. Shen Sui has tasted all kinds of dim sum. Watching the ministers in the palace toasting and toasting, the final gaze fell on the emperor. The Shen family's bad premonition has once again struck. Since ancient times, hasn't the royal family done all kinds of dirty things? This uncle has been clean and upright for several generations. Not to mention being selfless and constantly managing affairs in the court, this harem is surprisingly clean. TSK. How can I eat this melon? Listen. Still not listening. They also want to eat royal melons. The Shen family. I can't keep it at all. She even eats royal melons. Although my uncle is a good ruler and husband, he is not a good father. The emperor was stunned at this moment and looked at the crown prince sitting upright. The crown prince sipped the wine in his glass, but his eyes were blurred, as if he had fallen into memories. Uncle Huang has 2 wives. The young prince who was just born was left behind due to difficult childbirth before his early uncle ascended the throne. The little prince seems to know that he has lost his mother and has been very obedient since childhood. The emperor's slightly drooping eyes flashed a hint of heartache. Since the emperor married the current empress, the young crown prince's personality has gradually become cheerful under the careful care of the empress, and he has grown up to the present appearance of a gentleman, gentle and cheerful. Although the mother's love of the young prince has been compensated for by the empress, the father's love cannot be compensated for in the eyes of the young prince. The father in the court is always in a hurry, teaching his father to be stern and stern. In this yearning for fatherly love, there is also a mischievous nanny who constantly criticizes and attacks in her ears. No matter how well she does, she can only bear criticism and abuse. Learn about the ancient version of Pua. The little prince, who was gradually becoming less confident, was discovered by the empress to be wrong. After a detailed understanding, the empress and the little prince had a deep conversation and paid more attention to the little prince's condition in their daily lives. In the increasingly confident state of the little prince, the empress finally felt relieved. The empress's disgusting act of being done by a nursing nanny. Originally, at the beginning, the nursing mother was very attentive to taking care of the young crown prince, and the young crown prince was also smart and obedient. Nai Mama is also a daughter of a noble family, but her husband abandoned his wife and son, which led to her being handed over by the family to the young crown prince as a Nai Mama. Her son also died young, just a few days after birth. She treated the little prince as her son and took good care of him, but the arrival of the queen changed everything. The emperor ascended to the throne and married the empress, who followed her to the palace. The empress took over the small and large affairs of the young crown prince, and the young crown prince and empress gradually became closer, causing an imbalance in the psychology of the nursing mother. Finally, on the little prince's farewell, seeing the love between the emperor and the empress, her jealousy erupted instantly. Nai Mama believes that the empress dowager has a similar family background to her. Why can the empress be the mother of a country, with a loving husband and wife and a filial son? However, she can only be a Nai Mama who has been abandoned by her husband and has an unfortunate family. This nanny really worships herself and herself. How old is she? The queen nodded silently beside the emperor. That's right, you're a few years old, compared to me. Afterwards, Nai Mama decided to destroy the relationship between the emperor and the empress. She felt that the more excellent the crown prince was, the more the emperor would visit him frequently, and then she would have the opportunity to seduce him. Therefore, she strictly demanded the crown prince in all aspects, which led to a pathological control of the crown prince. The toad lies on its feet and does not bite or respond to others. Shen Wenru glanced at Shen Sui. Who on earth taught her to curse like this? But the nursing nanny was also sent by the young prince's family, so the empress decided to dispose of the person for the emperor. Take care of the trouble caused by oneself. Is there any problem? No problem. Shen Sui paused and looked up at the emperor with an indescribable expression. Did Uncle Huang forget to bring his brain when he went out that day? The people in the palace were all trembling and secretly watching the emperor. The empress is curious about what the emperor has done, which is mindless, looking at the emperor with a smile on his face. The emperor calmly drank the wine in his glass with various exploratory eyes, silently thinking about what I did back then. Shen Sui looked at the emperor with a puzzled expression, wondering which temple the living bodhisattva came out of, as he had only locked up the milk mammy in the cold palace. The queen and crown prince also looked at him with incredulous expressions on their faces. A group of ministers expressed that the emperor is not a living bodhisattva. Who in the entire court doesn't say that he is a living king of hell? How could the living king of hell still do such a brainless thing? This kind of deceiving master, instigating trouble, and placing servants in someone's house is not a matter of selling boards. The emperor clenched his fist and lightly coughed twice on his thin lips to conceal his embarrassment. I just ascended the throne and forgot about it, the emperor explained in the empress's ear. The queen rolled her eyes in her heart. How can I tell the empress that the wet nurse is playing hide and seek with the princess and accidentally sneaks into the cold palace? As the little prince Shen Sui touched his chin, distressed. What? Colleagues of the emperor, empress, and crown prince look up. The empress secretly tugged at the emperor's waist and turned away with staring eyes. If her son has anything to do, wait to sleep in the imperial study tonight. The emperor and crown prince knew that she had already dealt with it, so they silently let go of their worries. I have to coax my wife when I go back tonight. How did the Empress leave? Then I'll tell Uncle Huang. What if we don't know each other well? The Emperor's mouth twitched. Why didn't he say he was unfamiliar when he pounced on him as a child looking towards the Shen family? The disdainful gaze of his imperial sister had just moved away from him. What? I haven't seen the princess and the young prince today. Your aunt went to find them. Chen Yonglin handed her a cup of tea. Drink some water, little ancestor. I really don't need you to worry about it. Oh, Shen Sui nodded. Why did my aunt tell me where she's going? But it's okay, there's no need to remind them. Shen Sui drank tea in confusion. Chen Yonglin's turning motion was slightly delayed. I'm used to it, I don't even know how to find excuses. Shen Sui dug out his own cups. Candied fruit. A bit greasy osmanthus cake. Too choking. Let's stick to the small jerky. Shen Sui took out a small piece of meat and stuffed it into his mouth immediately bulging like a little hamster. Drama is indeed more charming in ancient times. Various performances are coming on stage one after another. The theater performer who diligently plays every role take out any one inside, and in modern times, it is the inheritor of a generation of intangible cultural heritage. Unfortunately, wow. Look at this little girl. The young lady playing the guqin couldn't help but pluck the wrong note. The little brother who played with the gun turned red in the face, accompanied by Shen Sui's heartfelt voice. Various performances were finally coming to an end. The last one is an ancient dance performance. Beside them are various ancient musical instruments, such as the guzheng, pipa, and sheng, and the chimes that Shen Sui is most interested in. It truly deserves to be the finale performance. 7 women wearing white dance dresses circled around a woman wearing a lotus-colored dress. Shen Sui looked up at the woman's face. Wow. Looking back with a charming smile. Color. No one noticed the pause in Shen Suiyan's words. Shen Sui looked around and fixed his gaze on the cobblestone ground. Step over and work hard to pick out a stone. Shen Huaixin didn't hear his daughter's voice and curiously searched for that figure. What are you muttering to her second brother? Chapter 7. The left brain is water, the right brain is flour, and when shaken, it becomes paste. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Shen Sui returned to his position, weighed the stone in his hand, and threw it towards the beautiful leading dance girl with a snap sound, accompanied by the falling stones. There was also the fainting body of the little girl leading the dance. The entire hall instantly fell silent, and all eyes turned to Shen Sui. That. Shen Sui blinked her big eyes and innocently glanced at them and then very timidly hid behind Chen Yonglin. Do you believe that this is an assassin? The person who heard her voice touched their nose and turned their gaze away. How did it sound? Like they were bullying her. The sound of cough successfully turned people's attention to Shen Sui's second brother, Shen Shan, to inform the emperor, this is an assassin. Just now, my younger sister saw the knife hidden on her body. Shen Shan bowed to the emperor. No, Miss Strange is too good. Looking, I accidentally found her. As soon as the words fell, the people in the main hall looked at Shen Shan with a theatrical expression on their faces. Shen Shan has good composure and remains calm in the face of his younger sister's downfall. The dancers were already so scared that they knelt on the ground and shook their bodies. Aren't you curious how she knocked people unconscious? The voice came from somewhere unknown. Everyone's gaze wandered back and forth between the fainting woman and Shen Sui. My little sister has been strong since childhood. The Shen family, that's not just big, is it the strength to pull out a tree with one's own strength? After all, after 15 years of smashing, the neighboring parents have grown too lush and have climbed over the wall to reach the peach tree in my yard. Don't say, those peaches are fragrant and sweet, delicious. The people from the neighboring government office said. At this moment, the crown prince led the guards to throw the bound few people next to the fainting woman. There are 3 men and 1 woman. The people in the main hall once again turned their gaze to Shen Shan. Shen Shan. No, what do you mean by me? Shen Shan calmly turned to the crown prince. Your Highness, this is. The crown prince seemed to be able to see the foxtail swaying leisurely behind Shen Shan. I saw these people looking suspicious before, so I sent someone to keep an eye on them. I've met that woman before, so I think they're together. Was he targeted early in the morning? I knew I didn't need second brother to remind the crown prince. Shen family. The Crown Prince. They put in a lot of effort in the front, but you put in a lot of effort in the back, right? Ministers and their families silently bow their heads, continue to compile. Mother, that little sister seems to be waking up. Shen Sui saw the little sister's eyelids twitch and pulled Qing Yonglin's sleeve, subtly reminding everyone, no, that's an assassin. Shouldn't you hurry and tie someone up for a body search? Waiting for what? Waiting for someone else to draw a knife. Everyone quickly took 2 steps back, and the guards bound the woman forward. Another palace maid approached and found a dagger, and the fainting woman slowly opened her eyes. She was still a bit confused when she just woke up, looking at the few people around her who were tied up like her. She remained silent and closed her eyes. She didn't have much to say when she was found out. She didn't expect to escape from this assassination attempt. The other few glared angrily at the emperor sitting at the top. Shu. Let's talk about it, the emperor sneered as he looked at several angry expressions. I probably know in my heart who these few people are. The ministers are trying their best to reduce their sense of presence. The figure hiding behind Qing Yonglin, with her mouth full of flesh and her eyes bright, watching the play, stood out particularly prominently. There's nothing to say, dog emperor. You can kill or cut as you please, one of the men angrily said. Do these people not have long mouths? Shen Sui looked at those few people speechlessly. The emperor didn't ask them anymore, leisurely drinking tea and waiting for Shen Sui's voice. A hint of coldness flashed as my gaze swept over a certain figure. TSK. The parents of these 2 siblings must be very humorous. Otherwise, how could 2 jokes come out? You. The man who had just made a sound looked at Shen Sui's eyes and burst into flames. What are you doing? Why are you looking at me like this? Your mind has run away from home. Shen Sui withdrew his gaze and continued to eat melons. The dancer and the man staring at her are 2 siblings. The 2 men next to her are the brother's personal guards, and the other woman is the sister's personal maid. These 2 siblings were members of the Wenjia family who were plagiarized 6 months ago. The former Minister of Revenue, Lord Wan, was executed for embezzlement of military rations and salaries. The imperial favor was immense, and the 2 siblings were only exiled to the north. Who would have thought that they would escape on their way to the north? The 2 of them never believed that one Shilang would be corrupt and suspected that someone had framed him. When the 2 siblings were instigated, they carried out such an assassination attempt. These 2 siblings have water in their left brain and flour in their right brain, and any slight shaking can result in paste. Really? The emperor nodded in agreement. If he were so easy to kill, every person who tried to kill him over the years would be stabbed, and now the body probably won't be able to be pieced together. Shouldn't we kill the person who planted it first, and then destroy the emperor? The emperor's eyebrows twitched and he said, Does he have to die? So much military pay, it's definitely not something that a Ministry of Revenue attendant can embezzle. This account book has to be handled by all levels of the Ministry of Revenue, and the final conclusion must be the Minister of Revenue, so this Minister of Revenue is very suspicious. Even the uncle I can think of, how could this emperor not know? He had already suspected the Minister of Revenue and sent someone to secretly collect evidence. He played a golden cicada shell with the Minister of Revenue's attendant, allowing the death row inmate to replace the husband and wife in the execution of their heads. If these 2 people obediently went to the north, they could meet their parents. When the emperor received the evidence, the whole family could return to Beijing. The 2 siblings looked up at Shen Sui in shock. The emperor glanced coldly at the still calm and composed Minister of Revenue. So far, he hasn't found the main accounting evidence. Look at the calm demeanor of this old fox. This evidence may not be easy to find. The emperor withdrew his gaze and looked at Shen Sui. I hope his little niece can be useful. If she breaks my plan, please provide me with evidence after today. If we can't find any evidence, he may become even more cautious. The Minister of Revenue was ruthless and wanted to eradicate the root cause during his exile. However, on the second assassination attempt, the 2 siblings escaped. When the emperor sent someone to protect them, he immediately sent someone to search for them. Unexpectedly, when they were approaching the capital, the people from the Ministry of Revenue were asked to find them first. When they arrived, the 2 siblings were being assassinated and started charging towards them before speaking. The two siblings thought it was another wave of assassination attempts and ran desperately. The people on the side of the Minister of Revenue saw someone protecting them, and this assassination failed. It would be difficult to kill them again next time. They came up with a plan and shouted, "The Emperor has orders, no matter what." The two siblings didn't turn their heads when they heard this. After escaping, they thought the Emperor wanted to eradicate the root cause and angrily decided to assassinate the Emperor at the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet. Even if you look back, you won't come to the conclusion that the Emperor wants to eradicate the root cause. The two siblings have already collapsed on the ground, and now it's really a capital offense that cannot be escaped, but it's been so long and no evidence has been found yet. Shen Sui was curious where it was hidden. Oh! Surprisingly hidden in the lotus pond in the Ministry of Revenue's Shangshu mansion. The Emperor's dark guards are puzzled him. They also searched in that pool, but couldn't find anything. No wonder they couldn't find it. The ledger was buried in the mud under the lotus pond. The Emperor saw that the composure on the face of the old fox, the Minister of Revenue, gradually shattered, and his eyes were sharp as he stared straight at Shen Sui hum and laughed. The secret guards went to the Minister of Revenue's mansion while keeping an eye on him and secretly investigating him. Wow! The entire pond is low and covered with gold, silver, and jewelry. Is there a high probability that my second brother will secretly go and retrieve some tonight? Is it highly likely that they will follow along to catch some? Everyone secretly thought to themselves, "Ah! It's too late. It's adding to the treasury." The people in the palace looked resentfully at the Emperor above them. The Emperor ignored everyone's gaze and turned around to leave. Well, he has to deal with the follow-up matters. As for those literati, they will naturally be handed over to the Dali temple for handling. Everyone who had seen the Emperor leave the banquet also went back to their respective homes and searched for their mothers on the way out of the palace. Many people wanted to get close to the Shen family, but when they saw the cold faces of the Shen family, they were stunned and couldn't step out. Chapter 8. Court Officials Questioning Shen Sui. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Last night, Shen Suigang, who was lying under the bed and enjoying himself eating melons, fell asleep soundly, unaware that she had sparked a verbal altercation in the court. "Your Majesty," Shen Suigang's voice can be heard by the world, and he knows things that ordinary people cannot know. He is different from ordinary people, and in fact, he is a demon. Huang advised in advance. The Emperor's gaze flickered as he scanned the officials below who were about to move. He couldn't hold back just as he went to court. "Your Majesty, Shen Sui is just a woman with an unstable mind. She knows everything about the world. If someone with ulterior motives approaches, it is like handing over secrets of Daqing's family and country." Seeing the Emperor remain silent, the ministers who initially dared not approach also followed suit and made suggestions. "Your Majesty, this woman is unfavorable for Daqing and unfavorable for the world. Your Majesty, for the sake of Daqing, the witch must not stay. Attached by the minister, who doesn't have a little secret." Suddenly, a Shen Sui comes out. What's the difference between stripping off their clothes? The Emperor watched as more than half of the old stubborn people in the entire court opposed it. At first, she was still Shen Sui, but in the end, she became a witch. After scanning around, my gaze suddenly became cold. I have lived for too long, making it difficult for a teenage girl. Just as he was about to speak, he caught a glimpse of the three members of the Shen family. With such calm and composed demeanor, he couldn't cross over their grandfather, could he? "Shen Taifu, what do you think of this matter? What do you think? Stand and watch." Shen Wenru, who was secretly slandering, slowly walked out and spoke up. "Huang Yushi, if you were a demon, would you choose to be listened to by others' voices or by others' voices?" Shen Wenru didn't wait for Huang Yushi to speak after asking the king, and turned to face a group of ministers. "My family Shen Sui is a woman who presented evidence of corruption by the Minister of Revenue yesterday. She was the first woman to stop the Wen family's siblings from assassinating her." The two words, "just a little," fell clearly into everyone's ears, as if mocking these people. Shen Huixin and Shen Huijuan also slowly stepped forward, facing these ministers. "Based on what Shen Sui did yesterday, do you think anyone else dares to do anything inappropriate in front of her?" Shen Huaixin looked at these ministers with a clever expression in his eyes. Shen Sui is capable of understanding world affairs, but she has never been involved in trouble since she was young. She just looks at some family gossip for fun. Did she leak royal or Daqing secrets yesterday? Shen Huaixin knew that Shen Suigang believed in her statement of curiosity killing cats. Yesterday, when reading about the royal deeds, she definitely skipped all kinds of confidential information that she found troublesome and rushed to gossip. Colleagues, there are too many dirty things at home. Don't burden Shen Sui with Daqing. I don't think it's Shen Sui who is against Daqing, it's you who claim to be for Daqing. What's wrong? What did you do to harm Daqing and want to get rid of Shen Sui quickly? Shen Huaijuan's sharp gaze scanned these old stubborn people. As soon as the words fell, the entire Tingjing hall remained silent like a cicada. The ministers are anxious and uneasy. Their family has many dirty matters, but they will not harm Daqing at this moment. The king of Huainan stood up and did not expect to encounter such a situation when he returned to Beijing to report his work. Your Majesty, Shen Sui is indeed different from ordinary people, but as Shen Shulang said, Shen Sui has no intention of knowing the secrets of Daqing. As the daughter of the eldest princess, she also has half of the royal bloodline and has the responsibility of maintaining Daqing. When other countries come to visit, Shen Sui can be allowed to follow and gather secrets from other countries. That's not necessarily true, Shen Huaixin thought to himself. Secrets from other countries are also troublesome. After all, Shen Sui is really afraid of trouble. Of course, he won't say it. The king of Huainan is speaking for his own little child. The emperor nodded and felt it was feasible. Your Majesty, Shen Sui has half of his royal bloodline, but everyone has their own selfish desires. Throughout history, there have been princes and nobles vying for power and throne. Look. Is this implying that the Shen family will conspire to seize the throne? Wang Yushe is an old and stubborn person. If it weren't for understanding his character, this situation would inevitably lead to Shen Sui's death. He would have thought that this old and inexperienced person was plotting to usurp his position. Your Majesty, you can summon Shen Sui to court, and the emperor will insinuate and test her loyalty, suggested the king of Huainan. Shen Wenru looked at the king of Huainan with a serene gaze. What made the king of Huainan so confident in his family Shen Sui? As his grandfather, he felt deeply ashamed. Little did they know that the king of Huainan believed in the century-old family tradition of the Shen family in his sincere heart towards the royal family. As soon as the words, Chuan Shen Sui, came to an end, Zhang Xiangrui, the general manager of the imperial household, immediately received orders to summon him. This is really painful. Shen Sui, who was still sleeping in bed and feeling drowsy, being hastily pulled out of bed by Ji Qiu, is like a lot of grooming and dressing up. Until I followed Zhang Xiangrui to the Tingjing hall, I was still confused. My daughter kowtowed to the Holy One, and the Holy One will live forever. Shen Sui unconsciously knelt down. All right, get up. The emperor's loud voice rang out. Shen Sui stood up and instinctively searched for the figure of his own father. Seeing the comforting looks from his father, grandfather, and uncle, his heart became slightly calm. She only went out for the first time yesterday and was summoned to court today, which inevitably made Shen Sui suspect that she had caused some trouble yesterday. Shen Sui, the peace talks between Dian and our court this time are to show sincerity and intend to marry Princess Qing'an. Do you think it's the main battle or the main peace? Regarding the marriage, they have already reached a conclusion that they will definitely not send the princess to marry, and the emperor is not lying. Shouldn't this be something that this little woman like her could know? Luckily, when I was eating melons yesterday, I even skipped national secrets and was afraid of getting into any trouble. I didn't expect bad luck to come early in the morning. Look. His daughter is very afraid of trouble, but she is very good at creating trouble. Shen Huaixin muttered to himself, Your Majesty, I am not an official and I have no rank. This is a matter of great concern for the safety and security of Daqing, and it is not something that I can discuss recklessly. Shen Sui's appearance of, don't touch the border, left everyone speechless. Shen Sui, as the daughter of the eldest princess, you are also considered a half-royal and should contribute to the country. Now, I just want you to express your opinions, don't be nervous. If you say wrong, don't worry. I apologize for your innocence. The emperor took a sip of tea and looked at Shen Sui with a smile on his face. Shen Suigang opened his mouth. Although the hierarchical system of this dynasty is not as strict, it does not mean that there is no such thing. I am afraid that I will not be able to put down my mind if I say the wrong thing. After some thought, I decided to struggle for a while. Your Majesty, may I ask boldly, what is the salary for these civil and military officials? The emperor, who was wondering why she asked so, immediately heard Shen Sui's heart ringing in his ear. No other meaning, but if the salary is enough, can I ask about this? If you want the horse to run, you have to feed it. The officials below nodded one after another, although they didn't care. A salary increase was something worth celebrating. The emperor rolled his eyes secretly in his heart. The salary he gave was not generous, but he did not mistreat these courtiers. Besides, how many of these courtiers came for their salaries? Who doesn't have any other livelihood? Shen Sui looked at the emperor's hesitant expression, thinking that his salary was too low. He felt embarrassed to say. Chapter 9. Those who offend me in Daqing will be executed even if they are far away. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Some of them can earn as much as your annual salary in a month, said the emperor as he looked at Shen Sui's expression, knowing what she was thinking. He quickly interrupted, hurry up and tell me your opinion. What is this little brain thinking every day? Unable to dodge at all, Your Majesty, I have the audacity to speak. If there is anything wrong, please forgive me, Your Majesty. Before the soldiers, what you asked me to say will not be punished if I make a mistake. Excuse me. Shen Suigang straightened his spine. My daughter is in charge of the battle. Let's not talk about how a country's responsibility can be borne solely by Princess Daqing. Besides, the one who talks about peace is his great Yan, and they should be the ones who should send the princess to marry. My Daqing army is strong, and I have fought against Dian for several years without any defeat. Now that Daqing can live and work in peace and contentment, it is the spirit of my Daqing good man who upholds the belief of only solving the battlefield for the country's death. There is no need for a horse to wrap its body around a horse. If I were to make peace today, it would be the ambition to destroy my Daqing. Those who offend my Daqing will be executed even if they are far away. Shen Sui straightened his back, his voice resounding, and his proud expression as a soldier of Daqing. What made Shen Wenru feel lost was seeing his beloved wife back then. Okay, those who offend me in Daqing will be executed even if they are far away, said the king of Huainan with a resounding voice throughout the Tingjing Hall. Some people in the military are passionate about Daqing. Some use military silver subsidies to support their families, and some want to restore the declining family as power. However, no matter what the reason is, once it endangers the country, they can unite with the outside world, in order to make the people of Daqing worthy of speaking up to the outside world. Nowadays, some people have the confidence to proudly lift their heads in front of the enemy, even giving a young girl who has just reached her hairpin the courage to shout. Even if it is far away, it will be executed. This makes them feel that all their efforts have not been in vain. The men from the Shen family were also slightly surprised when they looked at Shen Sui. Shen Sui, who was usually lazy and casual, was something they had never seen before. His childish little face had a serious and solemn expression, his tone was tough and resilient, and his fearless aura looked like that the emperor's heart was deeply shaken. His impression of Shen Sui was overturned, truly possessing the backbone that a royal person should possess. Not bad, don't ruin my royal reputation. What? The three members of the Shen family looked at the emperor with dissatisfaction. Why is it only your royal family? This belongs to my Shen family. The ministers obediently closed their mouths, and the emperor's attitude was clearly on Shen Sui's side. Who dares to argue with Shen Sui? Alright, you can wait outside and come home with your grandfather and them. Yes, Your Majesty. As he turned around, Shen Sui quietly yawned. In my previous life, I did many evil deeds. In this life, I woke up early and went to work. Perhaps the courtiers of this dynasty in my previous life were not bandits. Does that person in that seat look like a bandit leader? What is this political palace? A bandit's den. Shen Sui outside the palace lowered his eyes obediently, waiting to face down. How obedient he looked at that appearance. The eunuchs and palace maids waiting together outside the palace were so frightened that they broke out in cold sweat. The young lady from the Shen family is too bold. Everyone. Where did the aura of one sword once became a million soldiers just now go? Shen Sui returned to Shen Mansion, having breakfast while thinking about the morning court today. The emperor, who was busy with daily affairs, inexplicably asked herself a question related to national affairs. Of course, she wouldn't really think that the emperor asked casually. There must have been something related to her that happened, but she searched the system and the screen was full ********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************* behind it, and her grandparents and uncles were in front of her. She wasn't the one to delve into the details, so she left it behind. Shen Sui looked at the food on the table. Well, it's still so bland. She always thought that the food in the Shen mansion was relatively light, but yesterday she saw that the food at the palace banquet was the same. Her desire to make her own delicious food was aroused. Of course, the first thing that came to Shen Sui's mind was hot pot. I don't know if there are any seasonings for making hot pot in this era. Today, Shen Sui is going out to look for them. Meng Dong, today we're going out to play. Ji Qiu, go report to your mother and we'll go out. Yes, miss, Ji Qiu answered and went out. After obtaining Shen's mother's permission, Shen Sui changed into a lightweight dress and went out. Miss, where are we going? Meng Dong followed Shen's companion because she has been with the young lady since she was young, and rarely goes out on weekdays. Going out is also about doing things, and she is always in a hurry. She has never fully experienced the prosperity of the capital city. The market in the capital city is located to the west of the entire Kyoto, and the people of the capital city call it the West Market. Walking on the streets of Shishir, Shen Sui felt the long-lost noise, and the dazzling array of things made Shen Sui feel happy. Herbal medicine shop, lilac, grass fruit, fragrant fruit, cinnamon, mangosteen, star anise, fragrant leaves, fennel. These should be able to be bought at a herbal medicine store, but I'm not sure if they are called by these names. Shen Sui's heart sounded, and the two little maids carefully looked around. Seeing nothing unusual, they secretly breathed a sigh of relief in the noisy environment. The young lady's voice didn't seem abrupt anymore. Listening to their young lady reciting something like medicinal herbs, the two maids looked puzzled. How did Miss know so many medicinal herbs? If Shen Sui knew what they thought, he would definitely tell them not to underestimate the ability of a foodie. Miss, why are we going to the herbal medicine shop? Meng Dong was puzzled. Of course, going to the pharmacy is to buy medicinal herbs, Shen Sui said as he walked, pondering what he wanted to buy. Why buy medicinal herbs? Who is sick in our mansion? Ji Qiu looked at Shen Sui puzzled. No, let's buy medicinal herbs to make delicious food. Now the two little maids are even more puzzled. Can medicinal herbs still be made delicious? You'll know when I finish it. Let's go inside the pharmacy and take a look. Shen Sui looked up at the plaque of Baichao Pavilion. This pharmacy is quite large, and she should be able to find what she wants. Miss, are you seeking medical treatment or taking medication? Just as I entered the store, a waiter approached and greeted me. Shen Sui recited all the names of the medicinal herbs she wanted. Fortunately, the names of the herbs here are not much different from modern ones. Miss, this is the medicinal herb you need. Take it carefully. The waiter saw that these medicinal herbs were not harmful when put together and the amount was not large, so he deftly grabbed a few pairs for her. After thanking Shen Sui, he led his two maids straight to the market. The three of them looked around and were not in a hurry. A tomatoes on stick seller came up with a handful of tomatoes on sticks on his shoulder. The hawthorn was wrapped in a sugar coating, and the sun was shining on the sugar coating. Shen Sui couldn't help but come forward and ask for 3 strings. Take one bite at a time, stuffed with bulging cheeks, like a little hamster. Delicious. Seeing her own young lady enjoying her meal, the little maids quickly entered her mouth. Well, watching her young lady eat, I feel that the plain tomatoes on sticks are delicious. This scene happened to fall into the eyes of Pei Jinyu, the crown prince of the duke's mansion, who was just a few steps away watching the little face of Miss Shen, who had seen her at the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet and ate exceptionally well. I can't help but think of that day at the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet. She never had any free time in her mouth. She ate everything very well, and even though she was anorexic, she couldn't help but take 2 more bites, leaving slowly with a light smile. Shen Sui, who is eating tomatoes on sticks, searches the stalls. The most important chili peppers have not been found. If they cannot be found, they can only be replaced with Cornus officinalis. Shen Sui went through almost the entire market before buying back the materials she needed. Chapter 10. Finding hot pot ingredients and encountering the princess on the road. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Baijiu, beef plate oil and rapeseed oil. Dubon sauce is definitely not available in addition to the seasoning for cooking the base. Shen Sui also bought a lot of mushrooms. There are 2 types of pot bottoms now, and Shen Suigang walked briskly forward, catching a casual glance and stopping his steps. Oh no. Isn't this chili pepper? You really have nowhere to find a place to break through iron shoes. It takes no effort to obtain them. Shen Sui squatted down in front of the vendor's stall. Boss, what are you selling? The boss's eyes lit up when he saw a gorgeous little girl dressed in splendid attire. Hello little girl. This ignorant little girl is so deceitful. When their caravan passed by Shu, they accidentally saw a local girl hanging it as a decoration. They heard it was from a foreign country and wanted to sell this rare item in Beijing, but no one paid attention to it. They thought they could only smash it in their hands. This is not. A deceitful girl has arrived. Girl, this is called Sichuan pepper. Look at how festive it is. Girls in Sichuan all use it as clothing. Would you like some? Listening to this uncle's deception, Shen Sui twitched his lips. No wonder it can't be sold anymore. It turns out it was sold as an accessory. Take anyone out of this capital, who doesn't have some family background. Aren't the jewelry in the jewelry store fragrant? Isn't this chili unable to sell? How do you sell this? Here are all 50 taels for you, take a look. Upon hearing this, Shen Sui immediately stood up, really treating her as a scapegoat. This is probably only 10 pounds, 1 pound and 5 taels. Hey, little girl, don't leave. How much do you want? The uncle quickly shouted when he saw someone wanting to leave. I won't let you suffer either, I'll take all 10 taels. In fact, the vendor of 10 liang has definitely made a lot of money, but rare things are precious. Shen Sui doesn't mind giving more. The vendor saw that she didn't lower the price too much, and he still made a big profit of 10 taels. He simply packed the chili peppers for her and gave her 2 baskets as gifts. Seeing that there were too many things in the maid's hand, she also helped to carry a little bit. Shen Sui sighed in his heart as he should have brought Zhonglin with him. The 2 maids looked at the things in their hands and nodded in agreement. In their heart, Shen Suigang has bought almost everything and is preparing to take the road back to the mansion. Halfway through, Shen Sui saw a steamed bun stall ahead and looked at the sweat oozing from the forehead of the 2 maids. He decided to take a break from eating steamed buns before leaving. Miss, this. Ji Qiu hesitated as she looked around the stall. It doesn't matter if these maids are here, but a young lady from the Prime Minister's mansion in Shen Suigang just sits outside eating. Shen Sui glanced at her, a child deeply poisoned by feudal ethics. It's okay, sit down, he said, and sat down. First skillfully poured 2 cups of water and pushed them. She can jump around freely within the moral bottom line set by the Shen family, as long as she doesn't harm the heavens, reason, or go against the way. Moreover, these rituals are not necessary in the market. Moreover, Shen Sui observed that the things on this steamed bun stall were arranged in an orderly manner, and the couple at the stall were dressed neatly and cleanly, with a high probability that there were no hygiene issues. Auntie, we need 2 baskets of steamed buns here, Shen Sui said before waiting for the lady to speak. Okay, come on. The lady turned around and walked towards the steamer. The 2 maids, seeing their own young lady's casual demeanor, no longer restrained themselves, and their bodies naturally relaxed. In no time, 2 steaming steamed buns were served on the table. Putting these 2 buns in a cage, the size of the buns is not small, they are white and chubby, and looking at them increases one's appetite. When it was a little less hot, Shen Sui picked up a bun and stuffed it into his mouth. The 2 maids looked at each other and smiled. Then picked up the buns and started eating them. Princess, this family steamed buns have thin skin and large filling, and are not greasy or greasy. If you don't mind, why not try some fresh ones? A voice rang out next to him, and Shen Sui's gaze lifted up with that voice. There were two young men and women standing at the table next to Shen Sui. The man was handsome and the woman was beautiful. There was also a guard behind the woman. According to the man's title, the beautiful woman was a group leader, but it was unclear which princess she belonged to. Shen Sui thought for a moment and realized that if the prince of Dingbei was still in the northern region, he should be the princess of the Huainan Huang family who had recently returned to Beijing to report on her duties. The princess looked at the people coming and going on the street, seeming hesitant, but in the end, she sat down to look at the anticipation in the man's eyes. Princess, next year's spring festival, Zhao will definitely do his best and not disappoint the favor of the prince. The day when Zhao comes to propose marriage is also the day when Zhao comes to propose marriage. The man looked gratefully at the Princess Ha. The contempt in Shen Sui's eyes was almost overflowing. The two people next to me thought they had heard the wrong thing, but they didn't care. Brother Giulio, I don't care about these things. The princess blushed and lowered her head shyly. The princess doesn't care, Zhao doesn't care, Zhao can't make the royal family ashamed, the princess has no face. The man seemed dissatisfied with the princess's words and looked at her with firm eyes. If it weren't for the fleeting sense of success in those eyes, Shen Sui would have believed it. Tsk. Are you so righteous now when eating soft meals? Shen Sui pursed his lips. That little princess is really easy to deceive. The princess and the man were slightly stunned. Where did the sound come from? After the princess reacted, she looked around and indeed found Shen Sui at the nearby table with a disdainful expression on his face. She was also present at yesterday's palace banquet, so she knows the magic of Miss Shen. She lowered her eyes secretly. If it weren't for yesterday's events, she wouldn't believe it. She pretended to be unaware and covered her face, feeling shy. The man is still searching everywhere, with cold eyes. Who is going to ruin his good deed after failing to find someone? Readjust your expression, lift your eyes, and your eyes will be filled with tenderness. Looking at the princess, I saw her blushing cheeks and breathed a slight sigh of relief. Princess Huang secretly observed his expression, and in her heart, she believed in Shen Sui even more. Princess, please try it. The man looked at the steamed buns that had already been served and pushed them towards the princess in order to stay longer and understand the situation. The princess picked up the buns and slowly started eating them. Unfortunately, Shen Sui was disgusted by the man and had no intention of meddling. After finishing her last bite of steamed buns, she signaled to Ji Qiu to pay the bill and also packed the remaining buns back to the mansion. Are you Shen Sui from Aunt Biao's family? The princess quickly stopped Shen Sui as she stood up to leave. Shen Sui heard the princess stop her and turned to look at her in confusion. Although the prince's mansion in Dingbei and the prince's mansion in Huainan are royal relatives, it is not wrong for the princess to ask her mother to express her aunt. However, she has never met the princess before. Is the girl so familiar now? The princess saw her expression of, "Who are you?" on her face, and her embarrassed little face turned even redder, but she still bravely stepped forward. She had not yet figured out what eating soft food was all about. I am Luoran, a young princess from the Huainan prince's mansion. Recently, I went to Beijing with my father to report on my work. I saw you at the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet yesterday, and my father even asked me to visit my aunt's mansion when I had time. So what? Shen Sui is not sure, so Luoran saw that Shen Sui had no reaction and was secretly anxious. I happened to meet you today. Let's go visit Aunt Biao now. I happen to want to make friends with you too. Okay. You've said that, what can I do? Shen Sui glanced at the man standing next to Luoran. Luoran instantly understood and turned to look at the man. Brother Giulio, please go back first. Shen Suixian and I will go to visit Aunt Biao. Okay, be careful on the way home. The man didn't bother and just glanced at Shen Sui. As he turned around, Shen Sui noticed his frivolous gaze and silently took 2 steps back. It's really disgusting. Mom is crying with disgust in her arms. It's disgusting to death.